From WQAD News 8, my name is Joe McCoy, and you are listening to Sports with the Real McCoy. Today, we're going to be getting into a few investigations that are really taking the NCAA by storm, especially the baseball community here in Iowa, because the University of Iowa has had 111 individuals, which includes 26 current student athletes from the baseball, football, men's basketball, men's track and field, and men's wrestling team. All are now under investigation for potential gambling. Some of these are also criminal investigations, while also possibly and most likely violating the NCAA gambling policy. So this is a really big story, but the University of Iowa is not the only school that is coming down with these investigations. Iowa State also has investigations. They say approximately 15 students are now under investigation, and this all comes after the Alabama head baseball coach, Steve Buchanan, was just fired from the University of Alabama for allegedly having suspicious activity with sports gambling. So what Bohannon did was he had a sports bettor, or again, this is all allegedly, but he had a sports bettor in Ohio, and Bohannon was giving him information in terms of what starting pitcher Alabama was using that night, if a guy was hurt, things along that nature. And they tried to place a bet of $10,000. This is the rumor that they tried to place a bet of $10,000 on the Alabama LSU game for LSU to win. And the max you're allowed to bet on college baseball is $1,000. So it alerted a bunch of red flags. Bohannon, as I said, was fired from the University of Alabama. He may be facing legal consequences as well. We're not sure about that, but in our own backyard, the University of Iowa and Iowa State going through a bunch of investigations as well. So the vast majority of the individuals in the University of Iowa investigation are student staff or former student athletes. The list of the individuals does not include any current or former coaches, which is good to know, but it's the NCAA policy on student gambling is about as point blank and about as clear as it could be. You are not allowed to bet on sports, whether they're collegiate, whether they're professional, or whether they're amateur. If you are a student athlete and in the NCAA, you are not allowed to sports gamble. That is it. There's no exceptions to the rule. So it seems clear. One, the rule is clear, but from people I've talked to, and we'll see later in this podcast, a Zoom interview that I did with a legal sports bettor expert, someone who does sports gambling for a living, that they make it very clear, each team does in the NCAA at the start of the season, to every single player that you are not allowed to bet on sports. So I don't believe this is a situation where, some guys were just, joking around like, hey, I'm going to place $10 on this game, and, innocently did the bet and didn't know that they were breaking a rule. Every single player and every single person in that athletic organization should know that you are not allowed to place bets on sports. And now there are 111 individuals that are now under investigation. So on May 2nd was when the University of Iowa was notified of potential criminal conduct related to the sports wagering that also could be potential NCAA violations. And then on May 5th, several student athletes were notified that they would not be participating in the upcoming competitions. And our reason that this has been drawing a lot of headlines on top of just it being a big story with sports gambling is that two of these players are on the University of Iowa baseball team, including one of them is their best hitter on the entire team. So fans were really confused why these players weren't playing in the series against the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is now the reasoning, and no one really knows what the penalties are going to be, how long this investigation is going to take. So it's a very interesting situation. It's one that's very new to us, even though sports betting is legal in 30 states across America. It is still a relatively new thing. And we have never seen investigations to this extent into collegiate sports. And now to have 3 in the past month is really a big deal. So I spoke again today with a legal expert who helped me a lot to understand this situation better, to understand the rules, as I said, are pretty cut and dry, and then also what these potential penalties could look like, which really at this point, no one really knows what they're going to be. Take a listen to my conversation with Lee Sterling, who is the president of Paramount Sports and also a professional sports bettor. Lee, first we're going to start with the University of Iowa and these 111 individuals. It's coming out that they allegedly were involved in betting. Some are current student athletes, some are former student athletes, some are staff. Take me through this situation and what are the rules for collegiate athletes in the NCAA sports betting?
Okay, so I'm not an attorney, first off. I have to tell you that I'm a professional sports bettor and a handicapper. This will be my 30th year coming up this year in football. I did play college football, so I do know that the first meeting that you have after the coach meets you and you introduce yourself, usually to the rest of your team, they explain to you the rules that you cannot bet on sports, among many other rules in college, being a collegiate athlete. So that is, from my understanding, always spelled out. So it's something that is non-negotiable. And if you're caught, you know, the difference is I went to college in 1981. There was not sports wagering except for in the state of Nevada at the time. Now, I believe it's somewhere between 25 and 30 states have legal sports wagering. So the landscape has changed. You don't have to go there or go on the phone. You can just go on an app and wager. What we don't know is, and I don't think the University of Iowa is going to be forthcoming with how they found out about this until they're forced to do so, is how they found out and what the penalties are going to be for these individual athletes. Because I've never seen something like this happen before. It could range anywhere from a 1-game suspension or a few game suspensions to a season, or I don't know. You have to ask the attorneys. They might get expelled from the university.
Yeah. One of the questions I had with this being such a large number of individuals, was it something, and obviously we don't know the answer to this yet, but was it something where they knew they were breaking the rules, or they were just innocently, hey, I'm just with my buddies, I'm going to go place a sports bet, and didn't know that that was breaking these rules? But it sounded like from you, what you said, universities make these rules pretty clear.
Yep. So yeah, it was spelled out to me from the word go the first day when I was a collegiate athlete. So I'm almost sure it's spelled out to them. Ignorance is not a defense in this case. And like I said, the great unknown is we don't know what the penalty is going to be. They could have found out. There could have been a cheating scandal where 2 students were caught cheating. They could have looked at their cell phone and seen, an app on there for a betting, a sports betting company. And from that, they could have then gone on and said, oh, we see these other phone numbers of these friends, and, how everything spirals out of control. So like I said, ignorance is not a defense. These kids could have been wagering on college football and not played the sport. And to me, if they didn't have information and it was not like the Alabama situation, I don't see it being a major problem. But, I don't know what the rules are. And, let's hope there's some football players involved in the list from what they're saying of the 26 student athletes. And if that's the case, it could hurt the football team, could hurt the baseball team, a couple key starters, and some of these other sports. So I knew it was going to happen. I knew we were going to see some things happen with sports wagering. I just didn't think we were going to see 2 cases in the first, 4 or 5 days together.
Right. Let's go to that Alabama case. This one seems, more cut and dry. The coach has already been fired. It says they have text messages between him and the guy in Ohio who was doing the betting. But that seems like a straight, clear cut and dry. This is like tampering. He's telling someone this pitcher is not playing. We got a guy who hasn't pitched since March playing. Take me through that process.
Okay, so the name of the coach is Brad Bohannon, Alabama head coach. He'd been there, I believe, 5, 6, 7 years. I think he was probably going to be fired. So probably, or I'm guessing, was a little lax with some information that he had found out from his starting pitcher for that upcoming game. Now, if he had just said to a friend, hey, an hour or two before the game, I'm down. They're just talking. They have a friendship, and it's going to be tough for us today against the number one team of the country, LSU, without our starting pitcher. There's nothing I believe that they can get him for. But they have the person that was trying to make the wager, I believe, on his phone when he was making the wager was the name of the coach for Alabama. So I think they have them dead to rights, and that's why he was fired. They probably went through text messages, asked the coach for his phone, and they saw incriminating text messages between the two. And then I think also what probably did this better and also Coach N was what I found out is college baseball. They if you go back the last couple years, I believe it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they started putting up odds for the College World Series. Then all of a sudden, 3, 4 years ago, you saw odds on regional and super regionals. Last year, I saw some odds on college select games like Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12, and a few Pac-12 games, as many as 5 to 8 a weekend. And this year, there were some weekends where 18 to 25 games were available to wager on. Where I think they got in trouble was the limit is usually $1,000 for college baseball wagers. The rumor is they asked for a $10,000 wager. So bells and whistles went off there. Even some people don't realize this. College basketball, the small games, let's say between Middle Tennessee State and Troy. If you were to bet a game like that, the limit is usually $1,000 most places. So if he had gone in there, this gentleman with the information from the Alabama head coach and tried to wager 500, 800, very good chance that he would not have been caught, the two of them. So, but when you ask for a $10,000 wager, when the limit's $1,000, right, unless you're a consistent loser at that establishment, the bells and whistles are gonna go off.